Part 1, The Mystery of the Lost Tribes of Israel, a journey begins. Imagine an ancient mystery that has endured for millennia, a story that unfolds in ancient lands, across empires, and through the pages of sacred texts. Over 2,700 years ago, the Kingdom of Israel was a unified nation, its 12 tribes sharing a deep bond through faith and heritage. But following the reign of King Solomon, this unity fractured. 10 of these tribes, making up the northern kingdom of Israel, seemingly vanished after the Assyrian conquest in 722 BCE. Scattered across foreign lands, they faded from historical records, slipping into legend and leaving behind one of history's greatest enigmas, the mystery of the lost tribes. Yet, this story does not end there. The prophets of the Hebrew Bible, particularly Isaiah and Ezekiel, left clues that have intrigued scholars and believers for centuries. In the book of Isaiah, a passage promises a time when those exiled will return. In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the remnant that is left of his people from Assyria, from Lower Egypt, from Upper Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. This promise evokes an image of a vast, divine gathering, where scattered communities would come together from the farthest reaches of the earth. Imagine the hope this prophecy must have held for a people dispersed across unfamiliar lands, clinging to their identity and traditions. The vision intensifies in Ezekiel's prophecy, where he describes a hauntingly symbolic scene, a valley filled with dry bones, lifeless and forgotten. Ezekiel hears a divine voice, urging him to prophesy to these bones, and say to them, "Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life." This powerful image has long been interpreted as a promise of restoration, not just for individuals, but for a people whose very spirit seemed to have withered. Could these dry bones represent the lost tribes, communities that seemed long dead but are destined to live again? For centuries, these prophecies lay dormant in the hearts of the Jewish people, but today, they feel more alive than ever. Across distant lands, stories have surfaced from communities claiming descent from these ancient tribes. In Ethiopia, a group known as Beta Israel has held on to rituals that closely resemble Hebrew practices, keeping the Sabbath, following dietary laws, and preserving ancient texts. Similarly, in the borderlands of Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Pathans hold traditions that echo those of the lost Israelites, with family names and customs strikingly similar to ancient Hebrew tribes. These aren't isolated tales. In India, the Bni Minishi, descendants of the Shinlung people, share an oral history that connects them to the tribe of Manasseh. Their ancestors, they say, were exiled across Asia, yet they kept elements of their faith alive, observing the Sabbath, maintaining dietary laws, and eventually making the long journey back to Israel. In Nigeria, the Igbo people believe their heritage ties back to the tribes of Gad and Zebulun, honoring ancient customs and passing down stories of Israelite descent through generations. So, what does it mean that communities across such diverse cultures and regions claim this heritage? Is this merely a longing for connection to an ancient past, or could it truly signal the fulfillment of ancient prophecies? For those who carry these beliefs, the story of the lost tribes is one of faith and resilience, a journey that defies time and distance, kept alive through rituals, names, and dreams. And for others, it is a historical and spiritual puzzle waiting to be pieced together, offering glimpses of a long-awaited reunion. As we explore this story, we'll dive into the history, the prophecies, and the lives of people who believe they are part of this sacred mystery. From the mountains of the Middle East to the rivers of Africa and beyond, we'll uncover the legacy of the lost tribes and seek to answer one enduring question: are they still out there, waiting for the day when the bones of the past rise to new life? Part 2: Traces of the Lost Tribes Across the World. Imagine uncovering clues about the lost tribes of Israel not just in history books, but in living traditions, scattered from Africa to Asia. Among the most intriguing of these communities is the Beta Israel of Ethiopia. For centuries, the Beta Israel have practiced customs strikingly similar to those of ancient Israelites, observing the Sabbath, following dietary laws, and adhering strictly to ritual purity. Despite their geographic isolation from other Jewish communities, they held on to a collective memory of a far-off land, the land of their ancestors, Jerusalem. This dream of return was passed down through generations, embedded in their very identity as a people. In the late 1970s, this hope transformed into reality. Through a series of daring and covert missions, the Israeli government organized an airlift to bring thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel. Operations like Moses and Solomon saw nearly 15,000 members of the Beta Israel make their way back to the land they had longed for, a home they had kept alive in their hearts for centuries. For them, this journey wasn't merely geographical, it was spiritual. It felt, to many, like the fulfillment of the prophetic words of Isaiah, a miraculous homecoming after centuries of exile. But Ethiopia holds only one chapter in the story of the lost tribes. Moving further east, we encounter the Pathans of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Known for their warrior spirit and fiercely held traditions, the Pathans identify themselves as Pashtun and pass down oral histories that link them to the lost tribes of Israel. Some of their tribal names resonate deeply with ancient Israelite names, and certain practices, like circumcision on the 8th day, bear a striking resemblance to ancient Hebrew customs. While the Pathans primarily practice Islam, there remain rituals and names that hint at a heritage with echoes of Israel. Could this be a cultural reflection of Israelite influence? Or is it the remnant of a lineage that, despite centuries of separation, has maintained its connection? Further east, in the highlands of India and Myanmar, another story emerges. The Bnei Minashi, descendants of the Shinlung people, believe they trace their ancestry to the tribe of Manasseh. According to their oral history, their journey began in Israel, stretching across Asia over centuries of exile. Despite their isolation, they held onto the traditions of their forefathers, observing the Sabbath, following kosher laws, and even constructing synagogues in the remote Indian states of Manipur and Mizoram. In recent decades, thousands of Bnei Minashi have immigrated to Israel, reconnecting with the Jewish people they consider family, a reunion they believe was foretold long ago. In Nigeria, the Igbo people tell a similar story. This ethnic group, one of the largest in Nigeria, claims descent from the Israelite tribes of Gad and Zebulun. Although predominantly Christian today, the Igbo continue practices that reflect their ancestral roots, such as circumcising male infants on the 8th day and observing traditional purification rites. For the Igbo, their connection to Israel is more than history, it's a cornerstone of their identity, a symbol of resilience that binds them to their past. These stories of the Beta Israel, the Pathans, the Bnei Minashi, and the Igbo are just a few among many. In China, the Kaifeng Jews have practiced Judaism since the Tang dynasty, blending their heritage with Chinese culture while preserving their lineage and identity. In the forests of West Africa, groups in Ghana and Cameroon claim descent from Israelite tribes, recounting oral histories of migration and exile, as well as names and rituals passed down through generations. These communities, scattered across continents, have each preserved a unique piece of what they believe to be their Israelite heritage. Through customs, names, rituals, and oral histories, they keep alive the echoes of a time when the 12 tribes stood united. Could it be that the tribes, thought lost for millennia, are still with us in ways we have yet to fully understand? As we explore their stories, we step closer to understanding the mysterious legacy of the lost tribes, a legacy that challenges our understanding of history and opens the door to a reunion once thought impossible. The question lingers, are these the remnants of the 10 lost tribes, waiting for their rightful place in the story of Israel's people? Let's continue, guided by these enduring traditions that defy time and distance, as we piece together the living puzzle of the lost tribes of Israel. Part 3, Prophecies of Return and the Mystery of Rebirth. The story of the lost tribes of Israel is not merely an ancient narrative of exile and disappearance. It carries with it a promise, one that has persisted through the centuries, embedded within the prophecies of the Hebrew Bible. The idea of return, of a second gathering, has been a recurring theme in Jewish prophetic tradition, a glimmer of hope for a scattered people. In the book of Isaiah, we encounter one of the most powerful visions of this promised return. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth. Isaiah 11 verse 12, NIV. For those who believe in these words, this is no distant dream. It's a promise waiting to unfold, a gathering of not just the known descendants of Israel, but those lost tribes, too, from places beyond imagination. Across communities in Africa, Asia, and beyond, there are those who see in their traditions a connection to this prophecy, feeling that the time has come for a great return, a coming home that will reconnect them to their roots and reunite them with the larger Jewish family. But the most striking vision of rebirth and restoration comes from the prophet Ezekiel, who, in the 37th chapter of his book, describes a vision both haunting and filled with promise. He is led to a valley strewn with dry bones, symbols of lives once vibrant, now long forgotten. As he watches, a divine command is given: prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. Ezekiel 37 verses 4-5, NIV. This vision of resurrection has taken on powerful meaning for generations, especially for those who believe the lost tribes will one day return. Ezekiel's prophecy is seen not only as the revival of a people, but as the rebirth of a lost legacy. The imagery of dry bones coming to life suggests that even those who seem forgotten by history, the lost tribes scattered to the ends of the earth, could be called back, revived, and reconnected to the whole of Israel. And now, as Jewish communities return to Israel from all corners of the earth, from Iran, Iraq, and Syria to Ethiopia, Morocco, and even the Americas, the vision of these prophecies feels ever more tangible. In a world where so many cultures and traditions face the threat of fading away, the persistence of these ancient promises brings with it a renewed sense of identity and belonging. For many, this gathering of exiled people is a sign of prophecy fulfilled, a living testament that, even after thousands of years, the hope of return has not been extinguished. Across oceans and continents, individuals and communities who identify as descendants of the lost tribes share this belief. To them, the stories of Isaiah and Ezekiel are more than scripture. They are a calling, a reminder that they are part of a much larger family, a people who have waited patiently through generations. As they observe Sabbath, follow dietary laws, and carry out rituals of purity and faith, they see themselves as participating in a timeless covenant. In their practices, they hear the echoes of their ancestors, and in their identity, they feel the pull toward a homeland they may never have seen, but have always known. As we delve deeper into this mystery, we find ourselves asking, are we on the brink of witnessing the return of the lost tribes? Could it be that the prophecy of dry bones, the promise of a second gathering, is being fulfilled in our lifetime? For those who believe, the answer is not just a matter of faith, it is a reality that guides their lives and calls them to hold on to traditions that stretch back to an ancient and sacred past. With each passing year, as more communities make their way back to Israel, the story of the lost tribe seems less like a myth and more like a reality unfolding before our eyes. Guided by the words of the prophets, their journey back to their roots is not only a testament to resilience, but a profound reminder that some bonds can never truly be broken. As we continue our exploration, let us keep in mind the powerful words of Ezekiel's prophecy, as we seek to uncover whether these ancient promises are indeed coming to life, bone by bone, story by story. Part 4: A global search for identity, stories of survival and connection. The story of the lost tribes isn't just about a historical event, it's about the survival of identity and culture against extraordinary odds. Across the globe, communities claiming descent from these ancient tribes have carried on customs, stories, and traditions that speak to a shared origin. These groups, scattered by time and distance, have kept alive practices that offer glimpses into an ancient Israelite heritage. Take, for instance, the Pathans of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Among the Pathans, known as the Pashtuns, many families pass down stories linking them to the tribes of Reuben, Joseph, and others from ancient Israel. The cultural practices in these communities, including circumcision on the 8th day and traditional names that sound strikingly similar to those of Israelite tribes, are often viewed as clues to a deep ancestral link. While the Pathans are primarily Muslim, some believe their traditions echo an ancient lineage, one that has survived centuries of migration, conquest, and religious shifts. Further east, in the border regions of India and Myanmar, the Bni Minishi community, descendants of the Shinlung people, claim ancestry from the tribe of Manasseh. Isolated in remote villages for generations, these communities retained cultural practices that align with Jewish rituals. They have preserved stories of their journey from Israel to India, and, over time, many have embraced the modern Jewish faith, seeing their customs as part of a larger, ancient story of exile and eventual return. In Nigeria, the Igbo people offer another captivating chapter in this global narrative. The Igbo, one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria, trace their roots to Israel, claiming descent from the tribes of Gad and Zebulun. Today, most Igbos practice Christianity, but many Igbo customs and traditions, such as circumcision on the 8th day and ritual purity practices, mirror ancient Israelite traditions. These customs have been passed down through generations, forming a core part of their identity and linking them to a distant past. The Beta Israel of Ethiopia, who trace their roots to the tribe of Dan, offer a powerful example of resilience and cultural preservation. Isolated for centuries in Ethiopia, the Beta Israel maintained Jewish practices, believing in their connection to Israel even without direct contact with other Jewish communities. Their journey to Israel in the 20th century, through operations like Moses and Solomon, was viewed by many as a living fulfillment of biblical prophecy, a physical and spiritual return that represented the endurance of a lost heritage. These groups are just a few examples of communities worldwide who identify as descendants of Israel's lost tribes. Each one has adapted to its environment and circumstances, blending local customs with practices they believe reflect their Israelite origins. For many of these people, the search for their roots is not just a cultural curiosity but a deeply spiritual journey, a way to reconnect with an ancestral covenant and reclaim a place within a broader family of faith. This global mosaic of traditions and beliefs challenges us to think beyond conventional boundaries. The scattered remnants of these tribes may be more than just stories. They may represent a legacy that has survived across continents, centuries, and cultural shifts. Through rituals, names, and customs, they've kept alive an ancient link that defies time, embodying the resilience of the human spirit and the deep-rooted desire to know and honor one's origins. As we continue exploring, the question remains, what do these connections tell us about the nature of identity, and how do they shape the modern understanding of the lost tribes? In a world where lines between communities can blur, the enduring legacy of these ancient tribes reminds us that some bonds, rooted in faith and history, remain unbroken, no matter the distance. Part 5, A Reunion of Lost Heritage, What the Future Holds for the Tribes. As we stand at the crossroads of history and prophecy, the mystery of the lost tribes beckons us forward with questions that blend faith, identity, and destiny. Across continents, communities that trace their ancestry to ancient Israel share a common longing, a desire not only to reconnect with their past, but to fulfill a timeless covenant. In a world that often sees ancient traditions fade, these communities serve as living threads that tie the present to a sacred history, a bond to the land and people of Israel that has endured despite exile, distance, and generations apart. Today, Israel is a home not only for the Jewish people of Europe and the Middle East, but also for those from Ethiopia, India, and the Americas. Each community brings with it unique stories and practices, a patchwork of traditions that together form a rich tapestry of Jewish life. The Bnei Menashe from India, the Beta Israel from Ethiopia, and other groups carry with them not only ancient customs, but a narrative of survival and hope, a hope that has persevered through centuries and guided them back to their roots. Their stories show us that the ancient prophecies of return and reunion are not simply remnants of the past, they are actively shaping the present. As these communities arrive in Israel, they are welcomed but must also adapt, integrating their heritage with a modern society that has its own rhythms and customs. For many, this integration process can be challenging, a delicate balance between preserving their unique cultural identity and embracing the life and practices of a united Jewish nation. And yet, as they forge new lives, they add invaluable diversity to the fabric of Israeli society, deepening its connection to a collective past that spans thousands of years and countless lands. These returns are often seen as more than just migrations. For those involved, they carry a profound spiritual significance. The homecoming of these tribes is frequently interpreted as part of the long-awaited fulfillment of prophetic words, a sign that the covenant made with their forefathers is still alive and that the lost tribes are being gathered, one by one, into a renewed and unified Israel. In the eyes of many believers, this unfolding reunion is not merely a social or cultural phenomenon, it is sacred, a testament to the unbroken promise that binds the Jewish people to their faith and history. And what about the tribes that remain in places farther afield, in the mountains of Afghanistan, the forests of Africa, and the remote regions of Asia? What lies ahead for communities who claim Israelite heritage yet continue to live in lands far from Jerusalem? For some, the journey home is still a distant dream, complicated by political, economic, and social challenges. But as each generation reclaims its history, as each individual chooses to live in accordance with ancient traditions, the spirit of return remains unbroken. Their stories are like seeds, scattered yet resilient, waiting for the right time to take root and flourish. This remarkable era of rediscovery raises profound questions for the future. How will Israel continue to welcome these lost descendants while preserving its own cultural unity? How will these communities balance the heritage of their ancestors with the new life they build in their ancestral homeland? And will we one day see the complete fulfillment of the prophetic vision of a reunited Israel, where all 12 tribes once again stand together? The journey of the lost tribes is far from over. As we witness these communities reconnect with their roots, we are reminded that history is not merely a record of the past, but a living, breathing entity that guides us forward. In every tradition kept alive, every ritual practiced, and every story passed down, the lost tribes of Israel continue to find their way back, affirming a legacy of resilience, faith, and hope. And perhaps, in their journey, they invite us all to reflect on the enduring bonds that connect us to our own heritage, our own identities, and the timeless promise of belonging. So, as we conclude this exploration, we look to the future with curiosity and reverence, watching as the lost tribes return and write new chapters in the story of Israel. Part 6, Reflections on the Mystery of the Lost Tribes, a Journey of Faith and Identity. As we draw near to the end of this journey, we're left with a powerful sense of wonder at the enduring mystery of the lost tribes of Israel. For generations, the story of these tribes has captured the imagination of scholars, historians, and spiritual seekers alike, spanning thousands of years and crossing countless borders. What began as a tale of exile and dispersion has evolved into a global tapestry, with threads reaching from Africa to Asia, from the Americas to the heart of Israel. This is more than a story of survival, it's a testament to the resilience of identity, the power of tradition, and the strength of a spiritual legacy that has defied the forces of time. But what is it about this story that continues to resonate so deeply? Perhaps it's the universal human desire for belonging, a shared yearning to know where we come from and where we are destined to go. For the descendants of the lost tribes, the connection to Israel is not just historical, it's profoundly personal. It's a bridge between past and future, a living link to ancestors who once walked the lands of ancient Israel, and a guiding light that draws them closer to their roots. Throughout this journey, we've seen how communities like the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, the Bnei Menashe of India, the Pathans of Afghanistan, and the Igbo of Nigeria each embody this unbreakable bond. For these groups, the search for identity is more than an intellectual pursuit, it's a spiritual calling. Whether through rituals, language, or simply a longing to return, they've held on to fragments of a distant past, refusing to let go of the hope that one day, they would find their way home. These stories remind us that heritage and faith are not bound by geography or political borders. They are carried within each person, each family, each community. They are threads that weave together generations, creating a tapestry of beliefs, values, and dreams that transcend time. And as we see the return of these communities to Israel, we are reminded that the concept of home is as much about the heart as it is about the land. Home, for the lost tribes, is the place where their traditions and stories began, and it is also the place where they are finally being recognized and embraced. Yet, for every community that has made the journey back, there are still others who continue to live in distant lands, practicing traditions that echo an Israelite heritage. The journey of the lost tribes is far from complete. Each new discovery adds depth to this story, raising questions about the scope of Israel's family and the boundaries of its history. Will we ever fully uncover the truth of where all 12 tribes have gone? Or will some mysteries remain, inviting future generations to seek and explore? In closing, we recognize that the journey of the lost tribes is more than a search for physical return. It is a journey of faith, identity, and resilience that has touched lives across the world. It's a reminder that, no matter how far we may wander, the spirit of home endures, alive in our memories, our customs, and our dreams. The story of the lost tribes continues, and in it, we find a reflection of our own journeys, each one a testament to the enduring promise that we are, ultimately, never truly lost. As we conclude, we invite you to carry this story with you, as a reminder of the power of faith, the beauty of heritage, and the eternal human quest for belonging. Let us remember that history is not just a record of what has been, but a living, breathing journey, one that continues to unfold in the lives of those who, against all odds, find their way home. Part 7, The Legacy of the Lost Tribes, a Timeless Inspiration. The story of the lost tribes of Israel is more than a tale of exile, separation, and eventual return. It is a symbol of hope, resilience, and the human spirit's relentless pursuit of identity. For over 2,700 years, this narrative has woven itself into the fabric of countless lives and cultures, crossing borders and transcending religions, reaching people in the farthest corners of the earth. As we close this exploration, we recognize that the legacy of the lost tribes extends beyond the Jewish community and touches upon something deeply universal, a reminder that no matter how far we are scattered, there is an unbreakable thread that connects us to our roots. What we have seen in the journeys of the Beta Israel, the Bnei Menashe, the Pathans, the Igbo, and many others is a powerful testament to the resilience of culture and faith. Each of these communities has faced the challenges of exile, separation, and even doubt, yet they have held steadfastly to traditions, stories, and customs that span millennia. Through every prayer, every Sabbath kept, every ritual maintained, they have affirmed their place in a story much larger than themselves, a story of survival, connection, and ultimately, of return. The journey of the lost tribes reminds us of the incredible power of memory. Even without written records or physical artifacts, memories passed down through generations can act as a compass, guiding people back to their origins. Oral histories, customs, and names that echo ancient Israel serve as living links to the past, proof that identity can endure even in the face of time and distance. For the descendants of these tribes, Their identity is not just a matter of where they live or the language they speak. It is an enduring connection to a sacred promise, a covenant made with ancestors long ago that still resonates today. But perhaps what makes this story so impactful is the way it resonates with a universal human experience. All of us, in one way or another, seek a sense of belonging. We search for connections to our past, for stories that explain who we are and where we come from. The Lost Tribes represent a journey that is both individual and collective, a journey that speaks to everyone who has ever wondered about their heritage, their purpose, and their place in the world. This story is an invitation to reconnect, to rediscover, and to honor the legacy that each of us carries within. As the descendants of the Lost Tribes continue to make their way back to Israel, they inspire us all to remember the importance of identity and heritage. Their stories remind us that our roots are never truly forgotten, even if they are hidden for a time. They urge us to cherish our own histories, to respect the journeys that brought us here, and to honor the resilience of those who came before us. And so, as we close this exploration of the Lost Tribes, we do so with a sense of reverence and gratitude. These tribes may have been scattered, but they have not been lost. Through faith, tradition, and an enduring sense of purpose, they have kept alive a legacy that is as timeless as it is inspiring. They teach us that even the most distant branches of a family tree remain connected to the same roots, drawing strength and purpose from a shared heritage. Let this story be a reminder that history is not only behind us, it lives on in each of us. The journey of the Lost Tribes is a journey for all people, a reminder that our stories, though sometimes fragmented, are never truly broken. In the return of these tribes, we see the power of identity, the resilience of tradition, and the timeless human quest for belonging, a journey that will continue to inspire generations to come.